So let us continue. So far we have discussed about Java futures, and before that we have also completed comparing Java with the other programming languages, right? So from today onwards we are getting into the actual Java topics. We will try to understand how a Java program can be formatted. Before even proceeding with the writing Java program, we will understand what is a naming convention in Java, right? We will understand what is a naming convention. So let me take a small Java code snippet. Okay, this is my Java code. This is for the demonstration purpose. If you see here in my Java code, if you start from the top and if you keep going from top to bottom, this is a section. We will separate this code into different sections for the better understanding, right? This is a section. I will introduce each and every section. This is a section, and this is another section, right? And this is another section, right? So far, three sections, and let me wait 1 minute. Another session. Let me crop out another session. This is another session, not session, section, and this is the last section. So I have divided my Java code into 5 sections. Right, this is one section, second section, third section, fourth section, and fifth section. And I understand, I haven't introduced you about the classes. I haven't introduced about the import thing, and I haven't introduced about the package statements. I haven't introduced about that. No worries. We will just try to understand each and every section, so that understanding each and every section is going to be very easy while drafting a first Java program. So if you see this, this section is called as comment section. So this is a section which we usually called as comment section. And by seeing this, you can understand that any sequence of characters that is followed by 2 forward slashes. Any sequence of characters that gets followed by 2 forward slashes, we usually call it as a comment section. So this is a typical comment section. What is the specialty of the comment section, if you ask me? It is very simple. When you specify a sequence of characters or any sequence of strings, they will not be compiled. Compiler is going to ignore this. It is not going to consider the comment section. It is just for the developer. For example, if you are writing a particular Java code, or if you are writing a particular code which defines a particular functionality, you will write some description about your code on top of the method or the class. You will define a meaningful description about a particular code. Because if you are submitting your code to the your team leaders or to someone, when they see the code, they must be able to understand by just reading your commands. Right? For the readability, the person who is going to read your code is not going to read all your code. He will just read the commands and he will come to the conclusion that the code is going to take this inputs and the code is going to generate this output. That statement will be given in the comment section for that understanding, for the readability. That's why this comment section is always ignored by the compiler. Compiler will not even consider this comment section. Comment section is nothing but any sequence of characters that is followed by 2 forward slashes. Comment section. Right? And second section is what? Second section is you have to package. This is a package section, and we will discuss about this. Package section is nothing but you will divide a particular. For example, if you have a big Java code, you will divide the Java code into many pieces. And each and every piece of Java code will be placed under a particular package for the identification purpose. But since it is a simple and what we call it as a typical Java code, and I have used only one package. So in this package, I can simply say that package is also called as a collection of classes and interfaces. As simple as that. And there is a big package section that is going to be for at least 3 hours. To understand the first program, just think that package section is nothing but collection of packages and collection of classes and the interfaces. We call this as what? Package section. Package section. And this section, import section. Why it is import section? We have used a keyword called import keyword. That's why it is called as import section. Right? And this section is called classes or interface section. Why this is called classes or interface section? Because this section is talking about the class. It is specifying about a class, student class. That's why it's a class section. But interface, we haven't come across interface. Let me take this as a class section. Right? And this section is the something very important. This section is called as main class section. Right? The program has been divided into 5 sections. Command section, usually a command section is used to describe about the particular code that you have developed. Right? And package section is like if you have a big code and you will divide that code into bits and pieces, and each and every piece is going to be placed under a particular package for the identification purpose. That's why it is called as package section. Import section is something like, and you are going to depend on additional variables and additional classes. We have already seen that a concept in preprocessor is not required in Java, and preprocessor is required in C and C++. In C and C++, instead of import, they usually use what? Include statement. Right? So in Java, we use import statement. In Paints, these two classes has some dependencies. It is going to like perform the execution by depending upon this import statement. So we are just importing a package here, java.land package. We will see about this. Like for the time being, just understand the code can be divided into 5 sections, which are command section, package section, import section, and a class section. Since here we can see 2 independent classes, right? So one is one is not the main class, because main method is not in the student class. That's why it is an ordinary class. We can say that it's a user defined class. So we simply call it as class section, and a particular class that has a main method contained in that particular class, we call that class as what? Main class section. So this is a main class section. Why this is a main class section? Because main method is inside this class. Right? This is how a Java program can be divided into 5 sections. And our topic is Java naming conventions, right? So I am going to introduce about the naming conventions. You see here, you can identify many identifiers here. One is class. Name of the class is one identifier. Name of the class. You talk about the class name. Here the name of the class is student. This is an identifier, right? And if you take care, and here the name of the class is what? Test. This is also an identifier, right? We have 2 identifiers in the under the like 2 classes, and 2 classes have different identifiers. One is student and second one is test, right? So let me take that here. Let me write it down here. Class identifiers. If we observe one thing about the classes, if you see the naming convention, all the classes are starting with the capital letter. Student class, if you take the student class, student starts with capital letter, S starts with capital letter, and test class, test, the word T, letter T starting with capital letter. Right? When you want to name a class identifier, you have to make sure that the identifier is getting started with the capital letter. So we can say that the class name should always starts with uppercase letter. First rule, first convention. The class name should always start with uppercase letter. Okay, let us say that I have a class name. The name of my class name is like student data. I want to make this as the class name. This is a class identifier. I want to make this as a class name. We have to please ensure that there should not be any spaces between two words, right? If we have any two words and if we want to make that as the class name, should be in this combination, student data. First word should always starts with a capital letter. So if you take, there are two words and the first word student starts with capital letter and the second word data starts with capital letter. This is how we should name the particular class identifiers. Right? And again, if you talk about conventions, convention is not a rule actually. It is a procedure that one needs to follow to name the particular identifiers. It's not a rule. It's not compulsory. It is not a compulsion that you have to follow this, but it is highly recommended to follow this to improve the readability of the program. Highly recommended. Even in future, if you are developing any project, if you are working on any project, if you are defining your own class, you have to make sure that the class name should always start with capital letter. Right? And if you have a class name with more than one words, the like sequential words that you are coming across should be starting with capital letter. Right? Hope you're able to understand. Right? The sequence of words that is appearing must be started with the capital letter. Let us say that I have a word like student information system. These are three words. I cannot have the class name like this. Instead, I should eliminate the spaces. There should not be any spaces. Please make sure that it should be like student information system. This is a complete class name. This is a perfect naming convention. Student information system. I can use this. Class student information system. Right? So the conclusion for the class identifiers is very simple. The class name should always start with what? Capital letter or uppercase letter. Right? So this is one of the examples, and usually we call this convention in computer technology. We call this conventional case as Pascal case. Pascal case convention. What is Pascal case convention? Any naming convention. The first word of the name should always start with capital letter. The following words should also start with capital letter. So that is called as the Pascal case naming convention. Right? So this is how the class identifiers can be defined or can be named in the Java programming language. If you have a class, please ensure that you will be naming by using Pascal case naming convention. Right? Let us take another example, and we have completed about the class identifiers. Secondly, we need to think about what variable identifiers. So this talks about the variable. If you see here, student name here Ganesh. So let me write it here. If I if I try to distinguish between the value name So this part is called as, this data is called as what? Value. Simply I can say Ganesh is nothing but what? Value. Value. And the identifier that I have given, and an identifier which I have given to store Ganesh. Identifier is what here? Student name. Student name is identifier. This is called as what? Variable name. This part is called as what? Variable name. Variable we can say. This part is what? Variable. Variable. And this first string, I mean, you have this is the data type. String is nothing but what? Data type. Likewise, integer is also data type. Right? This is what? Data type. If you see, we are talking about the we have already completed class identifiers. Now we are talking about the what? Variable identifiers. Right? If you see the variable identifiers, you see this. If you see the naming convention, it follows a different naming convention here. So the letters always starts with lowercase, and the subsequent words are starting with uppercase. As simple as that. So let me write it here. So here we are talking about variable identifiers. Right, here I have taken the example student name, isn't it? So this is the identifier for, because the student name is storing the value Ganesh, right? So here the student name is the variable name. Right? This variable name should follow a convention, like the letter should the first letter should starts with lowercase letter, and the subsequent words, I mean to say, the first word should start with lowercase letter, the subsequent word should start with uppercase letter. This is the naming convention for the variables. Right? So how can I conclude this? Very simple. It should start with lowercase letter, and we can also say that one minute. It should not have any special characters in between the letters, between the words, and should not have any spaces in between the words. The subsequent words should be starting with uppercase letter. I hope this is making some sense. The variable identifier, so what? It is very simple. It should start with a lowercase letter, and it should not have any special characters in between the words. Likewise, when the spaces are also called as sometimes special characters, the subsequent word should be starting with the uppercase letter. Right? And if you say, if you want to understand about this case naming conventions technically, we call this as what? Camel case naming convention. It is just like a camel. I'm not sure why it is camel. It is just like a camel. So camel will be like, be bouncy, right? Camel case naming. Right? We have completed Pascal case naming convention, and variable identifier should follow what? Camel case naming convention. So we have completed the two identifiers here. One is class identifier and second one is what, variable identifier. Right? Thirdly, we will have to talk about the method identifiers. So in this case, if you ask me about the methods, I have only one method here, the main method. So this is the method that can be used for our demonstration, main method. So in C and C++, in some other programming languages, they don't use the word methods, they use functions. But in Java, instead of functions, we use methods. But both means the same, both are similar. In C++ it is functions, in Java it is going to be methods. In our example, we have only one method, that is a main method. Even if you consider, if you write your own user-defined methods, you should follow some naming conventions for the user-defined methods. Let us understand how the naming conventions could be drafted for the user-defined methods. So now we will understand about method identifiers. Method identifiers. Okay, sir. So method identifiers and variable identifiers are almost same. Why it is same? Even method identifiers, it will start with the lowercase letter, right? And even if the method name contains multiple words, the subsequent words, the following words will have the uppercase letter. Will be starting with the uppercase letter, right? So here I can write the same thing which I have written here. So let me copy this. This suits, right? To start with the lowercase letter, we should not have any special characters in between the words and the words and the words between the words, and it should not have any spaces between the words. The subsequent word should be starting with the uppercase letter. So we are just simply following the camel case naming convention. Same thing applies here. Camel case naming convention. Camel case naming convention. Right. So we have completed three identifiers. One is class identifier, second is variable identifiers, third is method identifiers. So here I am going to give you a small hint here. To talk about class, let me write it down here. A simple class. Let us say that we are talking about a class. We want to name a class. We will name according to the. We will give a meaningful name sometimes. Let us say that I am constructing a class on top of employee. Right. So in between this class, I am going to keep any code. We are not supposed to worry about the code. The code can be anything inside. Right. So if you see here the class, you always keep a noun. If you bring the English grammar, you always use the noun for the class. Noun means a complete name, a meaningful name. Right? You cannot keep a word. You cannot keep a word like action words, or you cannot keep something like adjective, something like that. A meaningful name you will keep, complete name. So here in this case, employee is a pronoun. It's a noun. Any meaningful name you will keep. Sir, if is it necessary or it is compulsory to keep any meaningful name? No, it is not compulsory. It is not a rule. But it is highly recommended to be followed in any project. It is highly recommended because this is how your colleagues or your team leaders or managers is going to identify the piece of code, and for them it will be very easy to read the code. Right? So and you are not supposed to use what, any acronyms. Please be informed. Please be informed that you are not supposed to use any acronyms. Any acronyms in the sense, any, like, any jargons, any acronyms. kilometers, right? So meaningful nouns. So nextly, if you talk about methods, how one can write a method. Simply, I am taking a main method, or let me take a user defined method. Click static void addition. Addition is the name of the method here. So what if I want to say that I want to add two numbers, right? What I will say, addition of two numbers. Camel case naming convention. Right? And what Java says, if you're using only one word for a particular method, for example, if you're just using addition, right? Addition is a single word, right? Addition is just a word. If you analyze this word is nothing but it's a verb. It's a verb. Any word that defines an action, right? We can also use what? Print. Print is a verb. Print is just a word, but it defines an action. Here in this case, it defines a name. It is giving an identity, meaningful identity. Class, for the class, you will give a particular name that is going to define an identity. In the methods, you have to give it. You are defining a word. Make sure that it is a verb. It is defining an action. Right? And what it follows? It follows what? Camel case convention. This is following Pascal case convention. Hope this is making some sense. Right? Just type yes in the chat box if you understood till now. Okay. And we will even for variables there is no such rules. Variables can be defined as per your as per your understanding. Like it's a student name. Variable can be anything, right? But you have to follow camel case convention. So for variables there are no such rules. And again it's a convention, right? So you can follow whether it is a camel case or a Pascal case. For variables and the methods, it's a camel case. For classes, it's a Pascal case. Nextly, we will understand about, see, if you observe this, right, this is what value is India. If you see the variable name, I have declared the variable name in capital letters. And there are two words, right? Each and every word is in uppercase, is in complete uppercase. First word is in complete uppercase, second word is in complete uppercase. If you find this anywhere in the Java code, it means it is specifying about a constant. We call this as what? Constants. So are called what? Constant variables. Right? Constant identifiers, you can say. Constant identifiers. So what are usually constants? The things that cannot be changed, they are called as constants. For example, Ganesh is living in India. Until he is living in India, he is going to be an Indian. It will not be changed. You can travel to any state. You can travel to Tamil Nadu. You can travel to Kerala. You can travel to any part of India, any other states that is in India. But he will be remaining in India, right? Until he remains in India, the country name is going to be same. It will not be changed. For example, Aadhaar card number, it's a complete constant. It will not be changed. Right? So any variable that is what completely fixed. It cannot be changed from time to time or from function to function. They are called as constants. Sometimes you will come across the word constants very often. For example, in future, if you are moving to company, in a particular company, there will be a number of employees, isn't it? For all the employees, the name of the company is same. So that is constant. In your college, you have so many friends and so many classrooms and so many departments, and they are coming under one college, constant. All the colleges are coming under one university. With respect to colleges, I mean the particular university is constant. To define something that is fixed, and we define that with a constant, and the naming convention for defining a constant variable is what? It should be like complete uppercase letters, right? So how can I conclude this? Very simple. It should be in uppercase letters. Such as the name contains multiple words. It should always be separated by what? Underscore. Right? So these are called as what? Constant identifiers. Right? So in technically, like in computer programming, we call this convention as what? Screaming type, screaming convention. Screaming case convention. So Pascal case, camel case naming convention, screaming case naming convention. We have come across three naming convention, and one convention suits for both variables as well as for methods. So remaining two conventions are completely independent. Class we have Pascal, for constants we have what? Screaming case naming convention. Right? Hope this is making some sense. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have completed 4 naming conventions. And lastly, if you see the import statement, I have specified here import java.lang package. This is something we are talking about, what? Import section. So let me write it down here. Package import. Or I can say that package naming convention. All the package names be provided or written in lowercase letter. Example, in this case, the example is this is the package name. Import Java, and don't get confused. Package developer is just a kind of dividing the modules into separate section. You ask about package name, any name that is preceded with the import statement, right? Any name that is getting preceded with import statements, that is called as import statement, or we can also call it as packages, not package section. Don't get confused. It means I am just importing a package. I'm inputting some package. The name of the package is java.lang package. But still it is import section, and we can also call it as packages because java.lang is a package. This is something package developer is something. It is just a what we call it as. We have included these two pieces of code under this particular package developer. Right, class student and class test is under the package developer. If I am working on a different package, I want to import these two classes, I will be using import statement followed by this developer package. Right. So package means if I am talking package naming convention means I am talking about the import section. So that is making sense. So import section, all the package names must be provided written in the lowercase letter. In this case, example is import java.lang.star. It's a package. Don't worry, I will be giving a clear-cut information about what is class, what is package, and things like that. So now our understanding is just on the Java naming conventions topic. Okay. Not start. Right. And there are this is not defining, there is no speciality about this particular package. Like we have, we can call this as Pascal case, we can call this as, this can be identified as camel case and things like that. And for this particular thing, there is no naming convention, no specific naming convention about this. And there are some other conventions which I will show you. Right? But that is not followed in the programming language. If you define any method like this, for example, show my show underscore my underscore marks. We don't generally use this in Java programming languages. If this is a kind of convention, all the letters are in lowercase and it is separated by underscore. This is called as what? Snake case. Snake case naming convention. And there is another convention called, for example, total students. This is a particular variable name, and all the lowercase words are separated by what? The minus symbol. This is called as kebab case naming convention. These are all about the naming convention. If like you have come across these things, Java naming convention, this is not about interview. This is how you design the Java program. In the interview room, no one is going to ask you about the naming conventions, but when you are trying to develop a Java code, these conventions needs to be followed. Even though this is not compulsory, let me keep you that note. Let me remind you. Note. What is a note? Naming, I can say that even though naming conventions are not mandatory for the user-defined classes, user-defined identifiers. It is highly recommended to follow whenever a Java code is developed, as it is going to improve the readability of the code. It is highly recommended. Following or not following is up to us, but it is always highly recommended to follow this, because When you are submitting this piece of code to your colleague or to anyone or to your team leader or manager, they should be they should it should make more sense, right? Sense in the sense they should be able to identify the things you have defined. They can easily identify if you are following this case convention. For example, like by looking at the Pascal case convention, they can able to come to a conclusion that okay, you are defined a class. Looking at camel case, they can come to a conclusion that whether it is a variable or it is a method. Right? By looking at the screaming case, they will be able to come to a conclusion that it's a constant variable. And again, if you are trying to, sometimes what happens, instead of you will do the direct communication to your colleague. You will say that this is if you are trying to inform him about a particular identifier, and you will inform him about a particular identifier by mentioning the case. For example, student marks. You will just say student marks, and it is following what? Camel case. So you will understand like what? Student marks. Right? And you will say student Pascal case. We will understand it like a class student. So you are just specifying it about a student. Right? You will say student country. Student country screaming case. So this is how it can be understood, screaming case. That is making sense, I guess. Making sense? Just type as in the chat box. I'm not sure. We have understood this type as in the chat box. Hello? Yeah. Good. So far we have discussed about this case, and again I am saying these are not the rules. These are the conventions, and it is highly recommended to follow. If you are not following, no problem. Still you are going to get the output. But for any user-defined code, and again I forgot to mention something. If the naming conventions are meant for predefined identifiers, it is compulsory to follow this conventions. What does it mean? When you're writing your code, when you're using your own classes, when you're defining your own classes, own variables, own constants, you follow, you don't follow, no problem. But when you're trying to use the predefined classes, in Java there are many predefined classes. Predefined classes means the classes that are defined by the Sun Microsystems, the Oracle Corporation, like such as string class. String is a class. When you are defining a string, since it is a class, it should always start with uppercase. You cannot define a string like this. It's not accepted because it is something declared by the Java people. Likewise, we have another class called string buffer. This is a predefined class. Predefined class should always follow this rule. But user-defined class, if you want to define any other class or any other functionality, that's up to you. But if you're trying to use predefined classes, make sure that you are following the convention. Compulsory, that is compulsory, that is a rule. But for user-defined, it is not a rule, it is a convention. Right? This understanding is very important. Right? Hope this code is making sense. So now our next topic is going to be what? Java comments. And before even proceeding with this, if anyone is asking you how the Java program can be formatted, Java programming format, very simple. Java programming format is very simple. First we have comment section, and comment section is followed by package section. Package section is followed by import section. Import section is followed by what? Class section, and the class section is followed by main class section. This is the Java programming format. This is the hierarchy, I can say. This is hierarchy for not for the enterprise applications, but for the simple programming, simple applications like addition of two numbers, When you are designing applications within your system, this is the hierarchy that is highly recommended to be followed. Command section, package section, import section, class section, and the main class section. Right, going forward, we are going to follow this hierarchy for all the Java programs. And for enterprise applications, like for big applications like banking applications, this sequence may be varied. No issues, but these things is completely acceptable for the small programs that can be designed in one's laptop or in a single system. Right, now the next topic is very interesting, Java comments. Java comments. So comments, we are talking about the comments. So why we are talking about the comments? The first thing that needs to be spoken or discussed is the comment section. We'll discuss about this comment section today. Right. After that, we'll discuss about package section. We will discuss about import section. Then the actual class tasks. We will discuss about the class section. Inside the class section, and we have things like variables that needs to be discussed, and we have things like methods that needs to be discussed, and we will be discussing about main class section. Then let us start about the comment section. So in Java, again, the comments are divided into three categories. One is single line comment. Second one is multiple line comment or multi-line comment. Third one is what? Documentation comment. So what is the comment and why it is very important to use comments? The comments are really important. Even though comments are ignored by the compiler, but it is very important from the developer's perspective. So what do you mean by that, sir? When you ask me what do you mean by that, it is very simple. For example, let us say that Ganesh is going to develop, Ganesh has a requirement, and the requirement is like, we need to develop a method that is adding two numbers. So Ganesh has given a task, simple task. The task says, develop a method that takes two inputs, that takes two numbers, and the addition operation needs to be performed. It's a task, right? So Ganesh, as instructed by his team leader, he started developing a method. The method developing is very simple. So let me say that the method is like this: static void add, or else I can say adding two numbers. Camel case convention, because it's a method, isn't it? Adding two numbers. So this is taking two inputs, integer a comma integer b. Right, method name is following camel case convention, adding two numbers. First letter is what? Adding is a word, and it is following with lowercase two numbers. So Ganesh has started what? System dot out dot println. He just adds two numbers. He is completed doing his task. Right, after completing his task, he just cannot tell his team leader or his colleague that the task has been completed. Right, the development, even though the development part is done, you need to describe something about the method. You need to give some description about this method in a meaningful way, right? Because since the code has been written by him, if the same code is given to Samyukta, you can you will be having a different solution. There can be n number of solutions to add two numbers in Java. So Samyukta is not going to follow the same code snippet that is followed by Ganesh. Ganesh is having a different approach, and Samyukta is going to have a different approach, right? As simple as that. If you are giving this code to someone, you should make sure that they are not going to read this code. Instead of what you will do, simply you will say, you will just give a description on top of this method. A single line description. In this case, you will use what? Single line command. Single line command in the sense, any command, any sequence of character, any description that is followed by two forward slashes. And what you will say, very simple. This method takes two inputs and performs addition. And you must understand one thing, since this is a single line command, the command should be in the same line, right? Single line command should be in the same line. So this method takes two inputs and performs addition operation, right? Single line command, so it should be the single line. And if this code is submitted to his team leader, because he has acted on accordance with the instructions given by the team leader, so this code needs to be submitted to his team leader. We'll just perform the submission, and before even proceeding with the submission, he will mention a command. The team leader is not going to even check the code. In future, if someone is seeing this code, they do not have to check the complete code. Since it is simple code, this can be noted and this can be easily observed and recognized, right? But in the future, the case is not like that. There may be a case like Ganesh is going to write a code that is going to have 1000 instructions, like more than 100 instructions. Right? No one is going to read all the instructions one by one. It is a time consuming, isn't it? Instead, they will just see the command, and the command talks about the code. The command has the complete description about the code. At the same time, these commands are always ignored by the compiler. Compiler will never consider these commands. These commands will not get converted to .class files. It will be ignored. Remaining things will be considered. Commands will always be ignored by the compiler because it is for the developer. It is for the developer's understanding. So commands are always ignored by the compiler. So these are called a single line command. Right? So when I say a single line command, it means a meaningful description that is defined on a particular method, or not only on the method, you can give on the any line. Even you can give this comment line argument on the system dot on top of the system dot out of println. You can give anywhere in the you can give anywhere in the code. I can give it here as well, no issues. Right next to the method, I can give the comments. I can specify this is method. It's also a command, single line command. So this is a method. It means this line as a description which says if this is a method. Here I can also specify a command. I can simply say this is a print statement. Print statement that performs addition. You can write anywhere command, any piece of code or on top of any method or top of class. Anywhere, if you take care, you can write anywhere. Even you can write here as well. Okay, sir. If I write here, then why did you mention the Java programming language in the comment section at the top of the program? By default, in Java program, by default, a particular piece of code on a particular piece of code, you will always specify the comment on the top of the session, in the first layer. By default, it is by default, and it doesn't mean that you are not supposed to specify comments anywhere in the code. By default, it is top. It takes the first position by default, right? It doesn't mean that you are not allowed to specify the single line comment on any part of the code. It is not like that. Even you can specify like single line comment here. No issues. Anywhere you can specify single line comment here. You can say this is the variable name called a variable name, and it is going to take a value in the form of string. Any meaningful thing you can say. Right? In the real time project, what happens? For example, as I have already mentioned that this code is assumed to be developed by Ganesh. Right? In future, someone has a requirement, and this code needs to be edited, or this code needs to be updated. Like instead of two inputs, this code needs to take 3 inputs. Some updation is required. Some changes in the existing code is required. right? So the person who is performing the changes in the existing code is going to write a comment on top of this code. This is what happens in the real time. On top of this code, the person is going to write a comment. What is it? Very simple. Task developer name and changes. You will include what changes that this particular method has gone through. And again, if in future again this code needs any changes, on top of this again there will be a comment added. Likewise, the comment makes sure that the code is updated at the same time. On every updation, the comment is added so that in the future the history can be tracked easily, isn't it? These are the importance of single line comments. Not be just ignore. Let me show you a small piece of program. I want you to answer this. So, okay, let the program be like the same program. What could be the output for this program? Just type in the chat box. The code. Want the output? I have an independent class, name of student, and I have a main class. The main class is test. I'm expecting an output, and what could be the output here? Answer. Hello? Samyukta and Ganesh, I'm expecting answers from you. If I run this code, what could be the output? Just understand that the execution starts from the main method. All the instructions in the main method will be executed. In this case, there is only one main method and there is only one instruction. What could be the output? My first Java program, that's correct. Very simple. This is a very simple question. I am not supposed to ask this. I have a reason behind. I have some other reason to ask this question. What if I do this? I have commented this. So what will be the output? Is it going to be the same my first Java program or it is going to be blank? I have commented this. So when I'm trying to comment, I'm trying to use the comment statement, single line comment statement, the compiler will ignore this particular line, isn't it? Right? And again, nothing from the beginning, the main method, the main thread will be trying to find the main method, and the main method will try to execute all the instructions in the main method. In this case, what could be the expected output? I have commented this. Comment means compiler will be ignoring. Now the output is going to be same or it is going to be blank? Yes, it's going to be blank because this is ignored. Any commands, whatever, for example, this is my command. It is ignored. It is not considered by the compiler. Output is nothing. If I uncomment this, now the output is my first Java program. Right? And I can give any meaningful name on top of this command. I can say that this is main method. This will be ignored. You can understand and other developers can understand. You can say that this is my class. Right? I hope this is okay for the day.